Almost a month ago, Microsoft announced the 2 terabyte Xbox Series X in Special Edition Galaxy Black. That was unsurprisingly met with disgust, even by the most ardent Xbox fans, due to its horrible pricing. And then today, Sony said, "Hold my beer." That's right, today Sony surprised everyone, including me, by announcing the PS5 Pro 2 terabyte would not only come without a disk drive, although I did expect that, but that it would come with an insane MSRP of $699 US. And don't worry, I'll get to what I think of its technical specs later, but I don't have as much to say about the specs or the tech as I usually would today because, well, they're exactly what I exclusively leaked months ago, including PSSR. Now today, therefore, I want to mostly focus on what I think Sony is doing here with the PS5 Pro's insane pricing. Alright then, so the first thing I need to make clear when we talk about the PlayStation 5's Pro price is that I do not believe Sony had any intention of charging this much for the PS5 Pro when they initially conceived of it. Even back in January of this year, when I really started leaking my first firm details about the specs, in that video, the people I talked to make it, nobody was suggesting pricing as high as anything north of $600 to me. It's not that anyone knew an exact price, you don't really know until Sony announces it, but when you analyze the BOM costs, and I'll link to a video that I did where I looked at the difference in costs for the components of both consoles, when you look at that, the PS5 Pro doesn't really cost that much more to make than the base PS5, especially when you consider the elevated prices of the components in the launch PS5 in 2020 when there were shortages. They didn't upgrade the amount of RAM, they increased the SSD size, but net that's like another $30 probably. Now all they really did is take the same board, almost the same chassis, it even shares the plates with the PS5 Slim, and they said, hey, we're going to take out a 6nm SoC and we're going to put in a 4nm one. That will give us more density, more transistors in the same space for the same amount of power. That's basically it. We're just swapping a couple parts out and calling it a day. It does not cost them another $200 with the disk drive removed to get to where they did with the PS5 Pro. This was definitely a choice. But what allowed Sony to make such a greedy choice? Well, the implosion of Xbox. I mean, come on, over the last 8 months, we have watched as Xbox not only canceled the Xbox Elite from coming out, which would have been the thing to really pressure the Pro to be aggressively priced, but we've also watched Xbox sales completely collapse to the point that retailers in Europe are largely beginning to not stock the console or its games at all. And many developers are now just openly saying that they consider the console almost not worth their time to develop for anymore. And then, I think Sony looked at this destruction of Xbox, and then they had some chart that they were looking over that looked something like this, where if you look at this summary of the current Xbox versus PlayStation lineup, well, we can see that Sony honestly doesn't look that much greedier than Microsoft, guys. I mean, the Series S is a 4 teraflop joke that sells for $349 and is having trouble even running some recent games. And then the Xbox Series X, well, it's priced the same as a PS5 Slim. And yeah, I know the teraflops are higher, but even the likes of Digital Foundry are finally admitting that those extra teraflops aren't making the games perform any better. And actually, I noticed this today. I didn't realize the Series X in white that just came out removed the disk drive, and then consider it. There's no way to add a disk drive ever to the Series S or the Series X in robot white. They're taking away your ability to own games and charging the same price as Sony. So yeah, I think what Sony did is they looked at the pricing difference between the Xbox Series S to the PlayStation 5 Slim 1 terabyte, and if you look at it, that's around a 30% price difference, and the PlayStation 5 is wildly outselling the Xbox Series consoles right now. If you look at the price difference then between the Xbox Series X 2 terabyte to the PlayStation 5 Pro after you add a disk drive, it is also basically the exact same pricing difference that we also saw between the Series S and the PlayStation 5 Slim. I don't think that's a coincidence at all. I think Sony looked at them running away with sales against Xbox, and they said, hey, if it worked there, why can't it work here? I mean, even when you consider the PS5 against the PS4, when you say something like, well, Sony's just competing with themselves now, yeah, well, the PS5 in Alliance sales is outselling the PS4. So I believe these factors are what made Sony go, we can definitely get away with this. And does that mean that I think it's good pricing for the PS5 Pro? Hell no. Two wrongs do not make a right. Just because Microsoft is trying to kill your ability to own games and charging way too much for a console that struggles to even run AAA games, this pricing for the PS5 Pro is absolutely idiotic if Sony wants to keep up with sales ahead of the PS4 long term. And that's because I believe Sony fundamentally might not understand that there are tens of millions of people still mostly gaming on PlayStation 4s that will not upgrade until the PS5 is brought to a much lower price than $400, and then maybe some Pro owners, PS4 Pro owners that is, will not be upgrading to the PS5 Pro unless they see that come in closer to $500. A lack of competition does not mean people will just blindly pay whatever you ask of them. If you charge too much, even if you don't have competitors, at a certain point I feel like a lot of people will just not buy anything at all. But what if Sony doesn't really care? That's right. Upon further digging into the data and reflecting on what I believe is going on with the PlayStation 6, I think I might actually have a hunch as to why Sony is milking the PlayStation 5 Pro so hard that it is more complicated than just a lack of competition. I think something else is going on here, and I want to talk about that and briefly talk about the specs of the PS5 Pro, but first an ad from a sponsor. Through October 31st, 2024, Uber One and Perplexity have teamed up to give every Uber One member, which is a membership that you can use to save on Uber and Uber Eats, in the United States and Canada, 1 year free of Perplexity Pro, a $200 value. Perplexity is an AI search engine designed to revolutionize the way you discover information. You can ask it any question and it searches the internet to give you an accessible and conversational, and most importantly, verifiable answer without clicking through tons of hyperlinks for hours, which means it can help you save time and money when using Uber and Uber Eats, because members can now also access unlimited use of Perplexity search engine, so you can exercise your curiosity and learn more about any topic you want in an engaging format, such as, well, I searched, why are Intel CPUs breaking? And I was kind of shocked to find it was a pretty dang accurate summary of the main causes we think are breaking these CPUs. Or I searched, why did some people think that Zen 5 would have a 40% IPC increase? And yeah, it accurately told you who had no idea what they were talking about, and oh, look at that. I think I like this search engine. And there's also things like Perplexity Pro Search that will break down queries into smaller steps, allowing for more comprehensive and accurate searches. And you have the option to select from different advanced AI models, including Anthropic's Claude 3 Opus and Claude 3.5 Sonnet, OpenAI's GPT-4o, and Perplexity's Sonar model built on Meta's Llama 370B. So if you want to support this channel by using this fantastic search engine that leverages AI, go to the link in my description or use the QR code on screen if you're an Uber One member in the US or Canada to redeem 1 free year of Perplexity Pro through October 31st, 2024, and that is a $200 value. All right. The first thing I need to point out as I build my case for what I believe Sony is doing here with PlayStation 5 Pro pricing is point out something that I think a lot of you may have forgotten in that leak from January that unveiled that Sony was working on a PlayStation handheld, and also that the Xbox Series X Elite was canceled. In that same video, I also detailed that Sony had the PlayStation 5 Pro SoC done for a very long time. They could have launched a PS5 Pro if they really wanted to, probably at the very end of last year, certainly by the beginning of this year, but they really didn't want to launch it. You see, they developed the PS5 Pro in case they needed it against a Series X Elite. But when they saw the Series X Elite get canceled, Sony, seriously, according to people I talked to, considered just not even releasing the Pro. However, they did revive the program, again, as this channel leaked, but up until now, one of the main reasons that I figured they were doing this is honestly just to market GTA 6. We all know it's coming to console probably a year before it comes to PC, and they'll probably have some marketing deal with Rockstar as usual. So being able to not just have GTA 6 marketing that's PlayStation-centric, but be able to also go, literally the best place to play GTA 6 is on a PlayStation console, that's a powerful marketing motivator for keeping the PlayStation 5 Pro program alive. And I do believe to this day that's a major reason we're even getting a PlayStation 5 Pro. It's not really about if a lot of people buy it. They just want to be able to market that they technically run console games the best. But in addition to this, today I want to propose another factor that I believe is influencing Sony releasing the PS5 Pro and releasing it at such a high price. They want to test out the waters to see if the market will accept an incredibly expensive console because the PS6 ain't gonna be cheap to manufacture. I mean, think about it. Based on what I am told behind the scenes from developers, that thing's gonna need to have 32 gigabytes of RAM at a minimum. And that is going to up the cost a decent amount because it will also have to be the latest GDDR7 or later. Now, in addition to that, I'm also under the impression that it's going to use a TSMC 2nm node. That will be wildly more expensive than the existing 6nm in the PS5 Slim or 4nm that's going to be used for the PlayStation 5 Pro. And trust me on that one, by the way. Behind the scenes at multiple companies, whether it's NVIDIA or AMD, it seems obvious that people are much bigger fans of 2nm than 3nm, that they're putting some products on 3nm, but a lot of them are just going to skip from 4 to 2 because it's just a more effective and higher performing node. I believe Sony is also likely to do that, again, upping the cost a ton. So with this console not being cheap, and with Sony knowing that they're going to want to charge at least $599, especially when Xbox is practically not even competing with them anymore, I think they're putting the PS5 Pro out at $699 to see if they can get away with at least $599 for the PS6. If no one buys the PS5 Pro, they'll go, whatever, we learned something, we'll charge $600 for the PS6. And if everyone buys it and they can't keep it in stock, maybe they'll charge $749 for the PS6, and they'll be glad that they had that data ahead of time. Also keep this in mind. Sony spent the money developing the PS5 Pro. It's a sunk cost. So it's not a huge deal if it breaks even. Like if they make, I don't know how many of them, 10 million, 20 million of them, and over time, they can only sell most of them. They have to discount them. Whatever. That's worth the cost to run an experiment to see if people accept higher pricing. And really, I don't think it would cost them that much if it doesn't sell well anyways. Look it up. The PS4 Pro was only 13% of PS4 sales, and it launched 3 years, not 4 years like in this case, after the base PS4. So I think it's entirely plausible that even if the PS5 Pro were to sell incredibly well, it might not even be 10% of PS5 sales. They don't really care if that thing sells that much. It's a small fraction of the PS5 market. And so there you go. That is what I would say the PS5 Pro is really trying to do here. The PS5 Pro isn't trying to get a lot of market share. The PS4 Pro didn't really try to do that either, and this one's coming out even later in the console generation. The PS5 Pro exists for like 3 main reasons. Number 1, to be marketed as the best console to play GTA 6 on. A lot of people will still just get GTA 6 for a base PS5, but that marketing will help them choose to get it on PlayStation nonetheless. And number 2, it is a victory lap around Xbox, just so all games, they can just start marketing higher resolutions and frame rates at peak PlayStation performance and rub it in Xbox's face. And then number 3, I genuinely think because they don't have really any competition this gen from Xbox anymore, and because they know the PlayStation 6 is going to cost a lot of money to manufacture, they want to take a risk and just use this as an experiment to see, hey, if we, make some amount of these at this price, will the amount of people we thought would buy it actually pay that much? If they won't, then we know the price for the PS6 we got to hit. If they will, then we know with the PS6 we can go as wild as we want to, and that's going to be very valuable data for Sony. All right, then. So, one more thing. What did I think about the specs, now they're confirmed in the presentation? Well, on paper, I've always loved the idea of the PlayStation 5 Pro, something that tries to not increase cost a ton and just tries to maximize higher frame rates and ray tracing pretty much at the same resolution the PS5 is already doing. That's a cost-effective thing for developing for it as well, because unlike with the PS4 Pro from the PS4, they're not trying to get to higher resolutions that much. That requires devs to put in higher res textures and then try to squeeze those textures into a small amount of extra RAM. They're providing a console where devs just go, all right, the GPU is decently stronger. We can just let the frame rates run higher, use PSSR to get to almost double them, and then if there's any gas left in the tank, turn up the ray tracing because it won't get as much of a hit. I love the idea of the console, and I actually thought that the presentation was really good. It wasn't a long video. It got to the points quickly. It was well done, slick. I like Mark Cerny basically anytime he talks. I don't have anything to complain about when it comes to the console itself. I mean, they're even letting you still upgrade the SSD. Well, you can see Xbox people hoping that the PlayStation Vita cards they need to buy for the Series consoles will go down in price. They're giving you more choice there. The only problem I have with the PS5 Pro is its appalling price. But yeah, I've already explained why I think they're doing that. And, actually, I think I will say one more thing in this video, and it's that, yes, it is very rewarding anytime the Moore's Law is Dead team, which, remember, isn't just me. There's a team of people here working on these videos with me and doing research with me. It's very rewarding to see an exclusive leak that comes out of this channel be officially confirmed by Sony. But I do have to remind everybody that Sony attacked this channel. Behind the scenes, I had to hire a lawyer to protect myself and stop Moore's Law is Dead from being pushed around any further. And that did cost a lot of money and time and a lot of stress. I haven't talked about this much because I'd like to let my work speak for itself. I like the channel to be about what we're talking about, not just about stuff going on in my life. But I do think you should all know that this work that I did getting you PlayStation 5 Pro information early, it did cost a lot. And now that it's confirmed today, I don't know. Just saying, consider supporting this independent journalism that these companies sometimes attack. On Patreon, you get exclusive content like die shrinks that come out multiple times a week, never with any ads. You get access to a Discord where you can discuss videos and podcasts with me right after they come out. And you can also ask guests questions for free. And you can ask live stream questions for free. The next guest is actually going to be Steve from Hardware Unboxed. I know he's really excited to finally come on the podcast again and talk about all of the recent releases that have been very controversial. That should be fun. If you want to ask some questions again, join the Patreon, or, I don't know, at a minimum, please just make sure you're subscribed to the Moore's Law is Dead YouTube channel and share this video to show support. And no matter what, though, if you made it this far to the end, thank you for watching.